Volya Radio. Slava Ukraini!
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I hope you're having a great day. It's hot as balls here. Just saying. That's my input for the moment. Oh, wrong person. I almost sent somebody else. Oh, boy. My brain may be being fried. But I figured it out for mockers what temperature it was for her brain, but I don't want to go find it. It's in the 30s. How's that for an answer?
Nice. So getting up there close to 100 degrees, huh?
And we're 92 right now. 92. It was supposed to get up to 97 today. So yeah, it's a
It
bit
just
warm.
makes no sense. 0 is 0 and 30 is very hot. Get with the program, folks.
Yeah, I'm
No,
starting
40
to understand that.
is very hot.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I am from the northern wastes.
I would agree.
What we call good soccer weather. And Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is currently tied with Uruguay. So go Uruguay.
I saw something on YouTube today. It was intended to be a joke, but it was the pondering of a woman who had no clue what the World Cup was, and they were trying to figure out what the United States did to get in it, in who the team is and what's their name, and who's their mascot, and all of these kinds of things. And yeah, right, and and uh, and and the what happens in this video is the person who's making the video then goes to the comments to see how people answer the comments on this one, and the comments are absolutely hysterical. And I don't remember any of the comments, but I remember what the issue was. But they then look at the comments, and the comments are hysterical and makes everybody laugh. So let's go ahead and do a timestamp for us if I can figure that out. And I was gonna say I might do a tame timestamp again today, but I don't know. Yeah, I think I will. I think I'll keep it to a tame timestamp again today. It is Tuesday, June 16th in part of the world, but not all of the world. So we're going to check out what time it is where. In the UK, it is 1:03 a.m. In Sweden, it is 2:03 a.m. In Ukraine, it is 3:03 a.m. In the workers' paradise of Perth, Western Australia, it is 8:03 a.m. In Tokyo, Japan, it is 9:03 a.m. I'm going to skip a couple. In Melbourne, it is 10:03 a.m. In New York, it is 8:03 p.m. on Monday, June 15th still. And in the Pacific Northwest, it's 5:03 p.m. And I just got a phone call that I got to take, so I need to go return that call really quick. So I'm going to leave it to you guys. Will, I think I sent you a co-host invite, but I'll send you another one. So can you still hear me, Adam?
I hear you great.
Okay, good. Because I did get a phone call in the middle of that.
It was just a blip, but then you came right back.
Okay. So yeah, I'm going to go return that phone call, and I'll be back.
Well, okay then. Welcome to Accidental Ukrainian. Have calmed down in the last 24 hours, but I was very mad yesterday, Will. Yes, sir. Yes, I was. And I don't know.
Yeah, sorry, buddy. I'm still packing the
Oh,
nest
you're
with
packing
fucking
it up.
ads.
Pack it up.
There's so many ads to put. It's like 50 ads you got to put up there, and then find them, and then make it harder anymore. So I'm not happy at all about this calm down. I don't want calm Adam Rachinsky. I want dial it up to 11.
Yeah, I was out of hand yesterday. Um, the Lavra is very special, but Zelensky visited there today and said a very ominous thing. I think he's getting some special head of the presidential office, Budanov, special training for his ominous statements. He's not quite as ominous as Budanov, but basically the clip I saw was he got, asked by a reporter on the stairs in the Lavra, and you could still hear the sprinkler or the water dripping from the firefighting, and in the background, and he just said, "They'll have our answer, or we will answer." I guess which is kind of the same thing. Well, I can't remember how he said it in Ukrainian, but I've seen both translations, and yeah, so they will answer, and yeah, I kind of think he's getting some omniscient, ominous training from Budanov because he kind of that was very it was cold, and I liked it in this situation, buddy.
Yeah, I'm just putting. I got the ads up there. I'm adding to the nest some things of gratuitous violence on Russians to follow up from yesterday. You know, planes falling out of the
Oh,
air, fuel trucks blowing up, uh, people at training schools getting vaporized, that sort of thing. I'll be back in a second.
I'm sure someone from the NAFO video department is working on that. That second video, the TU falling out of the sky, that kind of looks like a little bit like a paper airplane. It's just sort of, I just need some smart, demented, brain damaged doggy to add wah, 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 as it crashes down because it's pathetic, and their own description of it was great. Like, oh, we used it a lot and it's too old, so it fell out of the sky and probably killed a guy. But I don't know. He definitely had time to get out. But either way, they're not going to be building another one of those. And the just how all of these things that we kind of knew would have to start happening very, very soon are now finally happening. And to a greater extent, we've seen uh, Orky airplanes fall out of the sky due to maintenance issues, I think, in the past. But is this the most advanced fighter bomber that has gone down due to that
It
issue
is
so
not.
far?
It is
Oh,
not, in
well,
fact,
even
sir.
better.
But yeah, you're gonna love the deliciousness of this tale. So Tupolev 22, you can see the video of it going down up in the nest there that you'll like to see. Um, I'll note that this is since this war commenced, the fourth of the Tupolev 22 M3s that have fallen out of the sky during the period of the war. And I'll note that. Uh, the Tupolev 22 is the primary jet powered strategic bomber. Russia has three types of bombers in its strategic air force. That means strategic air force means the ones that carry the nuclear weapons. So uh, a full third of its triad includes these Tupolevs, the Tu-95s, the 22s, and the Tu-160s, with the Tu-160 being the most advanced, newest one that Russia had not been using prior to the war, because why would you use your most expensive long-range strategic bomber on a little pissant country like Ukraine? But the truth is, after Operation Spiderweb, they were forced to put into service their Tupolev 160s because they don't have enough Tupolev 22s. And and so over the in 2022, when the war commenced, the VKS Russian Air Force had 51 Tupolev 22 M3s on their rosters, noting at the time that 29 were airworthy in combat capable condition, including a couple that were transferred from Ukraine. Remember, at the end of the part of what Ukraine transferred to Russia was its nuclear weapons and its nuclear weapon capability bombers. So during the war now, with crashes and shoot downs, of which there have been a couple of notable, really nice ones by Ukraine, getting them with weapons that they didn't know were there, a little Frankensam work. The VKS has lost no fewer than 21 of these aircraft since the full-scale invasion. Now, 29 minus 21 equals 8. So the the VKS now has, after today's incidents, about 8 left following. So 8. Does that sound like a world superpower? They've got 8 of their, well, of course, they have Tupolev 160s, but the Tupolev 160s are now being worn out flying around, right? These things don't last forever, obviously, because these they're taking old ones out of the boneyards and refurbishing them at the factories. They're not building anything new in Tu-22 world, but we do see boneyards absolutely full of them at most major air bases inside Russia. And so they keep refurbishing them, machines from the 80s and 90s, to put them back into service. But basically, they have about 8 on hand right now. And with 8, a whopping 8, remember, a full third of the strategic fleet of 22s and 95s were taken out during Operation Spiderweb. So Russia's entire nuclear triad is well, one third of its nuclear triad, the Strategic Air Force, is very quickly being worn out, and that's evidenced by these non-military crashes when they have engine rebuilds and they don't go well because they don't have a lot of parts. They're essentially cobbling together ones from boneyards, and these long range jet bombers are meant to be used relatively infrequently, much like the MiG-31, the interceptor jet. It only flies about 5 times before it needs a full engine rebuild. So these supersonic strategic bombers are getting worn out relatively quickly, and that's good news for the world, that Ukraine is essentially eliminating quite a lot of Russia's nuclear threat capability of delivering bombs and missiles. I think it's interesting and good news for Ukraine, seeing this plane get shot or falling out of the sky, even though it wasn't shot down. Adam,
And are these their numbers, or is this kind of OSINT confirmed, or is it their numbers? Because that's
these are
another
OSHA
factor.
confirmed, but remember, OSHA confirmed in relation to strategic bombers would be pretty good, because the world keeps a pretty close eye on the nuclear capabilities of various countries.
Was just their claims, because then I would dial it down by maybe from 7 to 5 or 3. But if our OSINT community is confirmed, then that's good enough for me.
Yes. So Russia's hardly a superpower with 7 nuclear capable bombers. Australia has 35. So fuck Russia.
Absolutely. They're yeah, it's so good in that way. They can't even keep them in the sky. And was it part of the attack yesterday? Or no, it happened during the day today. Like, it was broad
No,
daylight,
it's
I
over in
guess. So.
Irkutsk. They were moving planes around. They because they're big scaredy girls. They keep all their strategic bombers way out in Ukranka, or the other air bases way out in. This is the one in Irkutsk, way out in the far east, so that they're safe from spiders. And in making them safe from spiders, they then have to fly them around long distances to get them where they want, and this one was moving from base to base and went ploosh. Looks like it had an engine burnout. Right, the engine's on fire as it augers into the ground. Unfortunately, the pilot and co-pilot, are reported to have ejected well before it crashed. So there's that.
He was unable to find an indoor bathroom for 5 hours before his rescue, and he had to bribe the local police 7 times for them to call for it. That's fake news,
Yes,
but that's just my idea of probably what happened.
true. More news from Irkutsk. I know you want to hear more news from Irkutsk. You just never hear enough about that since you stopped playing Risk. Irkutsk.
You stole. I was going to make the Risk joke.
Oh, well, sorry, stole your thunder. So the regional administration in Irkutsk have been hearing from local farmers. See, it doesn't warm up in places like Irkutsk for a long time. The snow and they're still sowing fields right now in Irkutsk, the agriculturalists, and they have come to the local administration to complain about the fact that they can't get fuel. An acute fuel shortage has hit Irkutsk. Now, remember, there's a big refinery in Irkutsk that has never been struck because it's too far away. But this is why I wanted to tell you about this. The farmers are complaining about lack of fuel. The head of the Legislative Assembly, Stepan Frankenko, has said an acute shortage of fuel is needed to complete the sowing campaign in the region. And the farmers report that for all attempts to negotiate with suppliers, there are two answers to from those suppliers. Either they simply don't have fuel at all, or they have been tasked with supplying Western Russia all the fuel that they've got. If we don't set limits now on what they can export from the Irkutsk area to other places, there will be no fodder. This means that there will be no grain. We can just prepare for the closure of all agricultural activities in the Irkutsk region if we don't find them some fuel. What's really important about this is I told you previously, I regularly tell you that when things go bad in Russia, the first answer is to screw over everybody who lives in the Far East. If you live east of Tumen, you can plan on getting bent over and rooted whenever there's a shortage on anything, food, fuel, anything. And you can see that in the latest map that I put up in the nest of where the fuel crises are as of today. They are still spreading heavily across all of Russia, and we expect this to continue. With what happens is the Far East starts to feel it even before the places where refineries have been struck, because they immediately force the refineries in the Far East to start shipping product to the West to cover where the real people live, Adam, and the people in the Far East can just suck it without fuel, and that's what's happening here. So they're risking not being able to plant crops at all in Irkutsk. And do you think they'll be along with food relief packages for the folks in Irkutsk once they don't have any food to eat because they can't grow anything? They can't plant anything this season. Adam, do you think the Russian government's going to be along with that help?
No, but I also wonder who they feed beyond themselves as well, but maybe not too much if their growing season is that short. But it's a large place, and if it's millions and millions of hectares not getting planted, it could be more than Irkutsk that might be affected, right?
Well, yeah, well, and from living where you do in the world that if you miss your planting window of about 3 weeks, your crop yield is going to go down drastically, or you're not going to get one at all, right?
Absolutely. There's usually one growing season. Kind of, that's they're probably in a similar. Um,
Yeah, when I
uh,
was growing up there and we grew wheat, even south of you, we of course planted winter wheat, which is planted in the autumn so that it sprouts up tiny little shoots, and then the snow falls on that and seals it all in dormant, so that it's got a head start when the growing season starts in the next summer so that you can get a full season in.
Yeah, well, that would be an absolute impossibility here due to the minus 30 degrees below zero, Prince, below freezing.
You didn't know that, did you? I grew up growing craft dinner for you.
Well, thanks for that. My bones also
Hard
thank
red
you.
spring wheat, but we sold virtually all of our hard red spring wheat into the macaroni makers.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I can't remember which of the news aggregators, if it was a Volya, it was probably Volya. Let's credit it to Volya. I heard that this was a probable or possible um, consequence of the fuel shortages. Like you said, they're always going to feed the head before they feed anything else, and it's probably not just going to be Irkutsk. And most of Russia, I feel like, is in this crappy, maybe 3-month growing season that I have around my place here.
I think it will affect it. So we see farmers down in Voronezh trying to get fuel from regions north of them. And the biggest signal to me of the problem here is Russia, when Russia's fuel refining capacity was struck to 35%, right? About a third of its refining capacity was offline in the 2025 season of refinery strikes, that August to September period, where they knocked them out. And then they kept hitting about once a week, to get them down and keep them down. When that number was at about 35, of course, they stopped exporting all fuel from Russia, gasoline, diesel, and jet. They didn't actually, they still allowed jet fuel export last year. And that meant that they could still have enough to share around and screw over the Far East for a while. Prices rose to 70 80 rubles a liter, and have held there, but they could get by. This year, with the compaction of these strikes into a shorter time frame of only about 2.5-3 weeks, and getting them down now to at about 50%. If you look at all the heat map indication off of firms, about 50% of the refining capacity of Russia is offline now, and that means that we have all the things that we had last year. Plus, we have restrictions on jet fuel. We have jet fuel outage shortages reported at numerous airports across central Russia. We have foreign flights come in to St. Petersburg, Moscow, and they're told they need to arrive with enough fuel to get back where they're going, because they're not always allowed to refuel. And if they are allowed to refuel, they're only allowed to refuel enough to get them to their next destination. So if you were scheduled to fly to Turkey and they flew in, and they wanted to get some more fuel to go back to Turkey, they would allow them enough fuel just to get to Istanbul if that's where they were going. No safety margin, no extra full, just top it up all the way, right? If you're flying a plane, you normally just say, "Hey, if I'm here, just fill it up," right? Nobody fills 3/4 of a tank. Right. So, but that's what they're doing in Russia. Fuel shortages are significant enough that foreign flights are being restricted on filling, and that's flights. Fuel shortages for diesel and petrol have extended across the country now. 21 regions are reporting restrictions, including significantly Leningrad and Moscow oblasts. And the most telling thing to me was how quickly these set in. When the Tatneft refinery and TKNIK in Tardistan were struck on the same day. The polymer petrochemical facility and the Tanico were struck the same day. This is Tatneft. This is the oblast, basically state fuel supplier for Tardistan. Immediately, the very next day, there were fuel restrictions in Kazan, the capital of Tardistan, and all of the Tatneft network now is in all the regions where they're at are reporting shortages and outages. So what this means is that even the mutual relief, right? When you have a refinery knocked out last year, oh well, just screw over the Far East and shift the Tatneft and the Irkutsk Surgut Nefty gas, shift all that fuel to the west to cover the people to keep them comfortable, and let the East be screwed over. Now they don't even have, at 50% outage, they don't have the capacity to do that. They're facing jet fuel shortages, they're facing petrol shortages, and their ability to do mutual aid to everybody around the country is reduced significantly. So every refinery outage now is going to have a bigger shock effect, and expect to see that. Coupled, those strategic strikes, coupled with the mid-range strikes that Ukraine is doing on all the supply, basically from Taganrog down through to Zhankoy, all the occupied areas, and picking off all of the storage and depots and pumping facilities to move fuel toward the war zone, and store it in and near the war zone is being eliminated. And tankers aren't safe. I put a really good photo of everybody's getting into the act, right? So uh, these mid-range strikes primarily started with Azov and some others going down to Berdyansk and Mariupol. Well, it's everywhere now. The strike that I've got up there, gratuitous violence item number one up there today, is a max just east of or just to the west, in the nest of the Tupolev crashing, which you should enjoy watching several times over, with the music wah, wah, as it goes in. I think that's a good idea, Adam. But just a little after that, near Nova Kakovka and Melitopol, this is the route that the folks are using to supply fuel up to the Zaporizhia front, where Ukraine has stabilized, straightened the lines, and are actually look to be pushing down to and into Kamiansky on the border of the former Kakovka reservoir. This is the fuel headed for them. Look at the feeding frenzy that's going on. All of the units, 413, Nemesis, we've seen the Phalanx folks, the Azov, if they're on the scoreboard, they're going after it. And even Hur has gotten into the action, and is taking out tankers and supply trucks in that mid-range area. A little shorter than what we would consider mid-range, but certainly Hur is operating down there. And this is a particularly nasty one, the video where they take out the tanker, I hate to say it, but I did derive a little pleasure from the fact that the driver ran from the thing on fire as well. I just felt a little
I
like that
appreciated
yesterday,
the
Adam,
artistic
and so I
factor.
decided to share it.
Oh, I know, I saw that
Sorry?
one just before the show. I appreciated the artistic factor. It looked like a Pink Floyd album cover to me. It was radical. He just needed to shake hands with another flaming guy, and we'd have a classic rock album. Yeah, it was. It made me think of that. I don't know why, but well, I guess I know why,
Stay
because he was
home,
on fire.
folks. If you're Russian, and civilian drivers are refusing to take these routes now, Adam. So they are pressing military drivers into this role. And here's a tip for you, Russia: head for the exits, or this flaming kebab of a man could be you if you're attempting to bring fuel, food, water, anything toward that front. You can count on getting a visit like this one. And if you're carrying fuel, it's going to be particularly attractive.
Yes, especially if you're carrying it on your person. Um, I wonder if it was worth the 100,000 rubles. So the going rate before this video went viral was a year's salary, average orc year salary of 100,000 rubles is just what the tweet said. Um, so I wonder if he got that. I wonder if his family will still get it, and I wonder if that I think they'll just outright refuse, especially after this, or else that rate will go even higher.
And that's why I say they're forcing the military drivers to drive tankers all over the place, because they basically can't pay civilian drivers enough, or they're asking for way more than 100,000 rubles, because that's chicken feed in what it costs you to live these days inside Russia.
That's, yeah. Well, maybe they could paint them up with that. You know what they use for those scenes in movies? They could just pre-paint all the drivers with that stuff so that you can set stuntmen on fire, just have them ready to go, and they probably have to reapply a couple times over their route. But yeah,
Just
pretty,
cover them with fire retardant, in a prophylactic fire
yeah,
retardant on them.
yeah, prophylactically and before as well. So double prophylactically, just previously cover them over. I don't want to give our orc listening guests any ideas here, but that stuff's probably expensive, being a
Well, I
film
think it's probably
industry
also
product.
toxic too. So go ahead and try it.
Oh yeah, perfect.
Yeah, yeah. So in other mid-range strike news, of course, yesterday, if you hadn't heard it, they once again struck the bridges at Chongar and Henichesk. So the governor of the so-called governor of Crimea, Saldo, has reported that those bridges were once again out of service. I'm sure in the last 12 hours they've probably rebuilt the um, pontoon bridge at Chongar, but that's okay. Give those Russians a flashback to Stalingrad. We'll blow it up in the day, and you can rebuild it every night. I'm happy with that service, because the service across those pontoon bridge is very slow. And in this get them down and keep them down regime of starving that front line. Uh, you don't have to 100% knock out the capability, but uh, get hitting it every night when they rebuilt it is a great idea. I applaud that. Keeping at it. And apparently, they still think there's something down in Fedosia, because yesterday they also hit something at Fedosia as well as Kavkaz. Now, Kavkaz is over in the Kavkaz port is over on the Azov Sea, just inside the Azov Sea, north of the Spit, in toward Kherson, toward Crimea, from Krasnodar, and that's the port that they had been using for the roll-on, roll-off ferries, the real big ones at first that they all sunk, and then they brought the smaller ones in from the river transport, and Ukraine sunk all those, and now they must have been doing something yesterday with boats or tankers or something at that little Kavkaz port, because Ukraine lit it up again with some number of things on fire at the end of the port, or possibly a ship at berth, which would be delicious. Um, they struck in Debaltseve. The AFU struck some railway infrastructure there. This is in the Donetsk region. We noted that there are three major points of unloading of rail to road transport there. We can expect Ukraine to keep striking in these mid-range strikes to any place that Russia's concentrating trucks, and they have to unload trains, is a very good place to start. um, uh, as a result of the strikes yesterday in the Kiev Pechersk Lavra, you'll be interested to note, of course, that Russia said immediately that wasn't us, Adam. It was a falling bit of a Patriot interceptor that did that. Well, here's the problem: the Patriot doesn't use a, a a
Lawnmower
motor.
engine.
Yeah, it doesn't use a lawnmower engine, and they found the lawnmower engine of the Garan 2 that struck the Lavra, because Lavra was actually struck with two devices, right? They struck it with a ballistic missile and then followed it up with an incendiary Garan to make sure that the thing caught fire really well. Well, the Garan, we've got parts of the motor from the Garan was recovered from inside the Lavra, so there goes that theory. But the UNESCO, the UN, still gave this as a result of the ongoing hostilities of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the Lavra was struck. By who? What's wrong with these people, Adam? Has I guess
It's terrible.
China and Russia have so infiltrated every portion of the UN that all these UNESCO won't even call out something when it's destroying thing that's supposed to be their core interest. UNESCO did not uh, directly call out Russia and condemn them for this act. They put it in very he said she said terms, which really pissed me off again.
Yeah, not surprising, but always disappointing. Yeah. And Ukrainian sanctions do the job. What you mean about the jet fuel and foreign jets not getting uh, fueled up? Why is anyone who's not an enemy country, like I can see China still flying into Orkistan, I could see, but fuck Turkish Airlines who want to go there. I don't care if they don't get fueled. They should not be going there. You're a member of NATO. Turkey, of course, we know is very complicated. But yeah, on that, of course they're going to say it was fragments. That everything that hits Russia is fragments, so they can just use that. And yeah, and I immediately saw it parroted in all of the comments. So the bots were also out in every tragic post of people, trying to express some human tragedy about it, and they're just like, oh no, the cockles, the Nazis, blah blah blah, and just kept on going. And yeah, so not
There's
surprising on the UN front, not surprising on any of those fronts, Will, but disappointing
Well,
as always.
and so it's not surprising on this. I mean, it fits. This fits the perfect narrative. So right after I got back from Ukraine, last week of May, the frothing, foaming at the mouth propagandists on Russian television were going on about how they should strike the Lavra, right? Wipe out the culture. I mean, these genocidal, the really out there frothing at the mouth genociders were going on. So what Russia does is oftentimes raises these outrageous things that they're willing to do to win the war in propaganda, and then people go, oh, but they'd never do that. But you better give us what we want, or we'll dial up the horror to 11. So they were ranting about that, and I answered them at the time, and so they raise some. This is the KGB method. They raise some absolutely outrageous thing in propaganda, then they actually do it, then they deny it, and the pattern follows exactly like this. Raise it, it would be completely justified. Outrage dies down. They actually do it. They struck it and tried to absolutely set it on fire. It was directly targeted, and then they claim, oh, but it was somebody else's stuff and debris, all the kind of shit that they normally do, and make sure that the bullshit story gets routed around and whipped up into a frenzy before the investigation is even done. Because look, it wasn't 24 hours. It was only about 14 hours till they were able to literally show you the Garan engine that they found the inside the Kiev Pechersky Lavra. But of course, I forget who it said. Who said it? The lie travels around the world before the truth got its pants on in the morning.
Yeah, that is a very, and that was that was before social media. I believe that's a quote from a century ago, and of course I don't remember who said it right now.
It
But yeah,
was. It was an American writer. I forget his name though.
Mark Twain.
Oh no, it wasn't
That's
Mark
all.
Twain. It was one of the older ones, like a newspaper guy. So one of the younger ones, younger than Mark Twain. It'll come to me. The little man is digging around in the stacks in my head, and he'll come up with it in the next hour while we're talking.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, yeah. Did you see that Sasha Meets Russia got sanctioned? Sanctioned meets Russia.
Oh,
Sasha Meets
oh
Sanctions.
yeah,
And
I
I was
did.
just reading
She,
up.
along with 80 others, right? There were 80 persons sanctioned by the EU. It includes members of a lot of companies. that own work on the Russian shadow fleet. It includes the Prosecutor General of the Russian Federation, Gustan, uh, uh, Putin's personal confessor, Shekunov, the CEO of Rostec, Yevtushenko, former ombudsman Astakhanov, chief physician of the Hospital for War Veterans in Omsk, one of the daughters of the son of Lukoil, the chairman of Lukoil. So a lot of people, Izhevsk aircraft factory owner, and the bloggers and influencers like our favorite Sasha Yost. Oh, so she better be Sasha Loves Russia, because she's not going to be going Sasha Loves Europe anytime soon.
Nope, she's not. And also, I saw, I'll put it up in the nest a bit, but they also sanctioned her boss, who is a woman named Maria Dudko, and she actually had a stable of 30 or 40, a bunch of bloggers of that same vein of a
All the tenant people in America work for her.
Westerner discovers how based Russia is.
So, Adam, you're rubber banding very badly for me. I don't know if it's just me or if it's everybody's hearing that.
Okay, I will get closer to the Wi-Fi.
No, don't you go anywhere. Let's confirm it. It might well be me. Oh, he's bailed already. In the interim, I'll correct. Actually, Adam Rachinski was correct. It was Mark Twain, the purveyor of most of our good funny sayings from America. That the truthful travel halfway around the world before the lie will travel halfway around the world before the truth has its boots on in the morning. Bringing Adam back up as speaker. Terry's come up. I think that's. Well, we've got Adam back as speaker. Hopefully everybody can hear me.
Hi, Will.
Hey, Terry.
I thought I'd just pop in and say quickly that, yes, it was Adam rubber banding, not just you hearing it, but I think that might be why he disappeared and he seems to be back again. But I also have a question. This business of, it was just debris from, it's because one of Ukraine's anti-missile defense, whatever it is, that landed on that, what's it called? Pechersk-Lavra? Kiev?
Lviv Pechersk-Lavra,
That's it. And my thoughts are, if Russia wasn't sending missiles in, Ukraine wouldn't have to be sending up their own defense missiles. So it's still Russia's fault. But somehow I can't figure out how to phrase it well enough, because I get so sick and tired of hearing them say.
Yeah, so directly targeting civilian areas with no military value is a war crime in and of itself. So that you're correct. But where we have direct evidence like this, there's no need to even muddy the waters.
Yeah.
This was directly targeted, and it wasn't air defense. There's no extenuating circumstances that reduce the level of war criminess out of Russia. They literally say they're going to do the horrible thing, wait a week or two, do the horrible thing, and then deny that they
Am I right in thinking that there are actually 2 Russian missiles that hit that church?
Well, a missile and then a drone, yes.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I believe it was either an Iskander or a Zircon that did the initial damage, and then of course they followed it in, as they almost always try to do, with a double tap with a Garan, with an incendiary warhead, so they could set a big fire.
Which of course is what they did do in Kharkiv, wasn't it? That looking at that picture of those responders, you just saw the legs of them, and just that it's upset me so much to just how the other responders had to then carry on doing the job of putting out the fires and rescuing people, but having to lay 5 of their own fellow colleagues to the side. Must be how they keep going day after day. It's just incredible.
You're right. Those 4, well, they did kill 5 emergency responders yesterday from the SES with double taps. 4 in the one strike in Kharkiv died while they were carrying out their initial activities, and they've named them all. I've got them up in Boyko and Tushenko, Makovetsky, and Zinchenko are all up in the nest. Those guys, and looking at these guys, they're young to middle-aged guys. These would be very experienced, highly capable first responders. And it's an absolute tragedy when you lose that level of skill and capability from your state emergency services. I'm sure they'll still be far more capable um, than the rubbish we see out of Russia, where, for instance, they are, as I predicted, still not able to put out that fire in Rybinsk. We're now burning into the 3rd day of that strategic oil reserve in Rybinsk, which obviously wouldn't surprise any of you at all if you were listening to me in the last 2 days, because that facility stores fuel of all sorts. So it stores diesel, jet, gasoline, everything. It's one of the strategic reserves of Russia. Yet they built it with no fire protection and no spill protection that keeps pool fires from affecting all the tanks inside the area, not just one. So, really, really, honestly, if you tried to operate a facility like that in Canada or America or Australia, you'd be going to jail.
With an
And
added
that's just
black rain
normal
bonus.
operation for the order.
With an
Sorry.
added oil rain bonus that they're getting.
Well, plus talk about Mordor. Did you see the video of early yesterday when they had obviously some cooler temperatures and some storm clouds came in, and you've got this black oily pillar just boring its way through the other atmospheric conditions. It was very Mordorish.
Yeah, they got a good place to put the eye now. Welcome up, Anka.
Yo, yo, yo. I just wanted to mention I also read something about the fact that one of the first responders who was injured, she lost her hand. So it kind of underscores the fact that as a first responder, she's no longer going to be able to likely to do the work that she has been trained for. So she's had like a life altering injury. And it kind of underscores the fact that we often talk about loss of life, but there's also a loss of lifestyle or more, because people are often injured not just in terms of, okay, you get a cut, you get stitched up, slap a band-aid on it, watch it, and you'll probably heal and be okay. There's so many limbs and so many eyes and so many taken out, or facial injuries, or there's head injuries, traumatic brain injuries. There's so much more that, even though people are still alive, they're messed up.
I mean, and let alone the PTSD you'd have from doing the activity of the first response and repeatedly having to go to these horrendous fires and sites of fires and explosion where you're finding dead and injured people all the time while you're also trying to put out the fires.
Exactly.
Yeah, we used to speak to a firefighter from Kharkiv regularly, and we thought Roman was maybe injured or killed because we stopped hearing of him here. But in fact, that's exactly was his mentality. Was he was just couldn't do firefighting anymore because He was so badly affected by it that he went and joined the military. He's, the way he wanted to go deal with it was go kill some orcs, and I definitely sympathize with that mentality.
You'll find no argument here from me. Yeah, that is that, and that to me, because the Lavra will be rebuilt. So that to me is the greater tragedy, and that's how I calm down today. Before, after my screed last night, that's on the internet forever now. That is that those two ordinances that went into the Lavra or a tragedy, but that place will be rebuilt just like it was rebuilt the other times in history that the orcs destroyed it. And I would not limit that to 1941 because they helped the Golden Horde across the plains. Right, Lexi?
They did. It's too bad we invented the horse. Then they used it. But the why, you know, there's a couple of things here that could add to our venomous thoughts, because first of all, the double taps in Kharkiv, that's when you think about it, who do we know about who did this, who perfected this, made it an art form, and it was the deadly duo, the chums, Assad and Putin. For how many years did they bomb the people of Assad? And remember, they had a thing about the white helmets, and they were bent on, this is part of Orkistan's talking points, bent on proving that there was something sinister about these white helmets. And so they had a storyline that these were evil, and because Assad was doing this, the holy war, in the same way that Putin is doing now. So they did double taps. There was, we don't even know, 100,000 missing, dead Syrian people, civilians, basically, including rescue workers. So that's a absolutely tried and true practice of Russia, and it's good to remind people that's under Putin. They did this stuff against a whole population, confined to cities and under attack for very many years that lasted. They started in 2015, and I'm not sure how long they continued. So that's for one. And then, so yeah, I've been listening to people talking all over the place about why would you do this to this one of Christianity's holiest and most ancient of sites? And I wonder if it's an indication that Putin is getting some grasp, however much, people theorize that he's in a bubble, and on the other hand, does he know exactly? At any rate, there's clearly now, with the pace that Ukraine has stepped up, incontrovertible evidence that Putin knows the jig is, something is up. And this is uh, this is an indication, just like these so-called small hits on Chernobyl and Zaporizhia power plant, that I can go further nuclear wise. And this, I think that the Lavra, the central, like the main, how accidental. Not only was it such an accident that incendiary drone followed ballistic missile, but the largest, the central building. And what he's saying is that, I'm mad now and I will stop at nothing. And I don't even want to mention other things but this is him saying it's going along with this holy war, because of course, since the Moscow Patriarchate and the holdover sit-in monks have been removed from there, of course it's become the complete the complete satanism, as they keep saying on TV, week after week. So I don't know if it's to just generate enough popular opinion, because these messages are also largely to his own population. So is he showing them that it's really necessary to step up our God ordained holy mission against the Antichrist, of course, in order to try to draw more people to attempt to do in some guise, a conscription drive. I don't know, but it's this. I will stop at nothing. Um, and so this is a demonstration. I mean, none of this is just wild lashing out. And so it's good to understand what exactly is going on in that leadership in the Kremlin. And I mean, it doesn't make you any calmer. It makes you very angry. But it's also an indication of how much Ukraine is doing, so that even Bubblehead, in his bubble inside bubble, uh, he's getting the message, and yeah, that's what he's doing. He's warning people. He's escalating once again, escalating in order to get his own population wound up and to frighten. They're still on this, we'll frighten the world and show. And now everybody's thinking, of course, what more can he do? And all of the tremblers in fear are going to say, oh my God, and tons of them are, bring this man to the table. I'm so sick of hearing about tables. There is only one table he needs to be brought to, and that's in front of the judges at The Hague. But I think that this makes sense, that people who are saying that this is what Putin is doing, and none of it is just lashing out as a result of the conflict between. It's Putin escalating even further.
Well, I think I see a trajectory of this escalation on all of those fronts that you've mentioned. They're a little bit more timid with the nuclear trajectory, but it seems like they strike a UNESCO site in Ukraine once every 6 to 8 months, and they get older and more precious as we go. So they're testing our response, and they're testing their own people's response, because if the orcs were half as religious as they claim to be, then there would be angry orcs that were very angry about this, about them the Lavra is 300 years older than Moscow itself. So yeah, so the hypocrisy of it is absolutely stunning, and I just think it's very calculated. Go ahead, Terry.
Cheers, Adam. Yeah, I agree with everything that you've all been saying, but I also think as well that some of the stuff I heard today was comparing what happened today with what happened with Grozny, with in Chechnya, that it's the attitude of, well, we're never going to get to Kyiv after all, so let's just blow it all to bits. And I think this was almost a sign that if they can go for one of the most precious things in Kyiv, that everything else will be just, nothing. So I think you're right in saying he's sort of testing the waters in Russia to see whether it's going down okay with his public there, or whether there'll be a.
Oh, and it is,
Yeah,
isn't it, Terry? I've seen Vox Pops with the on the street in Russia who have said, "Why aren't we just
yeah.
nuking Kiev?" Yeah, they'll it's this cycle. They'll generate some outlandishly propagandistic, horrible statement that do this, or we unleash the horror, and the population goes, "Yeah, why aren't we unleashing the horror?" And then so they'll do it. They're dancing in the streets some places about the strikes. I mean, the Vatniks in my email love to get sort of DMs to me on days like yesterday, or and yeah, I mean, they all think that it's going to psychologically tear us apart when we see things. Look, frankly, being an atheist, I'm actually far more directly upset about the destruction of the Dozhenko film studio. You know, 100-year-old
Yeah.
studio with all the artifacts there, 100 years worth of props and costumes, 100,000 costumes going back nearly a century, all burned out. That all destroyed because that sort of cultural heritage of movies and things that is far more interesting and moving to me culturally than any space alien or space god or whatever like that. I'm not religious. What I appreciate is the cultural expression of actual people who I could reach out and touch and feel and see and all that sort of thing. And so I find that, but of course, all the Vatniks don't know that, and now they will today, of course, because they know it now. I'm happy to say it. But yesterday it was all about the Lavra. Like that's going to upset me. Do your research, Vatniks. I'm an atheist, and the Dozhenko theater upset me far more. But even that, it's not going to win you the war. It's not going to rebuild your bridges from Crimea into Kherson. It's not going to stop the daily destruction of your fuel tankers going anywhere. It's not going to stop the elimination of the bridges now in toward Taganrog. The M4, the Yevgeny Prigozhin Memorial Highway from Rostov to Moscow will soon be under fire control of Ukraine. And touch me. We'll touch base again at that time once your starving and crying soldiers are evacuating their positions from the front, despite the fact that they will be given a not one step back Hitler-esque type order from Putin safely in his little bunker. That all expense necessary to hold Crimea. Well, the order will definitely be given, and none of your destruction of the Lavra, or if they went after Saint Sophia's, or any of the church porn that I've put out from my visits to Ukraine over time. Nothing that they could hit in Lviv. Nothing of that sort is going to win the war for you. All it is going to do is turn virtually every Ukrainian into Adam yesterday, where they're going to be willing to give you no quarter, whatever. This war. Read the conversion of Anna Odetska, who her mentality throughout this war and what she's seen. She's living through the horror of what Russia's doing in what she calls nightmare theater every day. She's now got a lot of anxiety problems. She has mental health problems she needs to deal with from living through this every day and being a very high thinking, contemplative individual. Well, where she's at now is the hard line of Ukraine that I hope wins out in this war. This will be the last war, is all that the destruction of the Lavra means. It means that Ukraine is going to continue until Russia is no longer capable of being a threat to them. And what that likely means is the destruction and breakup of Russia. But I encourage Ukraine to still maintain that mentality, because even as of today, in just a few short hours, you're going to see the Mango Mussolini and others try to pressure Ukraine into a shitty deal, that just so that the war can end, just so that they can get it off their schedule. Fuck that. This war continues until it's the last war. I am fully with Anna Odetska and the others who've now lived through all of this and say this is going to be the last war of Ukraine. They're no longer going to face a threat from Russia ever again. I fully applaud that decision, and I'm on board with that approach to this. Adam?
Yeah, I don't think they will. Uh, I love Magyar's tweets, and it's something about how we've seen these incremental attacks. They didn't you say accelerating? I probably added that in lexicon, but it is actually a conveyor belt of retribution that is already running, and yeah, I mean, maybe if there was a sort of Biden-esque sort of will help you, but keep this one arm behind your back, we'll help you a little bit type thing going on in the White House. But the baboon has absolutely
Nope.
no anything over Ukraine anymore. And in fact, it's probably in their best interest to humiliate them because he's an obvious agent or at least useful
And
traveler.
it was a really good move of Zelensky to invite Putin also to the G7, that they could have a meeting, a direct face-to-face meeting there,
What, he
wasn't it?
did that? Man, he has to get the Budanov. He must be getting the Budanov training.
He did, and of course it was rejected immediately.
Well, yeah, because Huilo is scared shitless of him.
But it's like, hey man, it's Switzerland. You can go there. They let you in.
Yeah, no problem, bro. There might even be a bunker we could find you on Airbnb. Oh, yeah. Okay, go ahead, Alan.
The conveyor belt of retribution. Boy, do I love that image. Look, do we even know if Putin is really calling the shots? Because I don't think he is. There is some lowly team somewhere in Russia that decides on the nightly targets. I don't think Putin knows what those targets are. I don't think he probably even sees it in the news the next day. Um, and I don't know where that idea takes us. Maybe it takes us to the place that it's not Putin's war against Ukraine, it is Russia's war against Ukraine, and it is more and more Russia's war against Ukraine. It is more and more Russia's genocide. Every single time one of these attacks take place, because someone is doing this in the name of Russians against a peaceful people and a peaceful nation next door. And ordinary Russians cannot abide it. They are envious of what Ukraine had and has. They are envious of everything the West has, and they want to do nothing to attain it themselves. They simply want it given to them. And I'm talking about luxury watches and cars.
Yeah. We despise the West, but we absolutely want to have 700,000 of us travel to luxuriate in Europe, because there's no place like that in Russia. And look, when I was living in Russia, I talked to people about why they didn't go on some of the holidays I went on, and they were like, I don't want to go holidays in Russia. I run into Russian people. Ugh. They want to pretend that they're somewhere else, that they can have all the things of Europe yet maintain these incredibly bigoted worldview, and that they're never going to get called to account for it. Lexi.
Well, I still we know very well that one of the biggest problems for Russia in this war is that Putin's been trying to micromanage it the way Hitler did. So you just try and bring that back in your head. Sure, there was stuff he didn't know about, but these people were firmly under his control, and you don't get these kind of shots into the Domitian Cathedral without Putin behind. But anyway, I mean, obviously they're in it together. He's got his whole cabal. Also, I'd like to say that it seems to me that even I heard people talking about all the evidence. Oh, yeah, it was that pair of Jonathan Fink with that guy, A.T. Pierce, about all the evidence that apparently been cited over the years that the man absolutely will not use a cell phone, but dating from 2018 or something at least. But I mean, there's the very old tradition of having newspapers from around the world, complete with circles and arrows and and explanations and what have you, and in a reading room for the the empire there, that the man would be absolutely foolish not to have available if he wanted to, and he can ask them what the picture's about. Even though I know they prepare a doctored news program for him every day. But I wanted to report something because in class yesterday, I mean, from the very beginning, Privet, how are you, and your affairs? We started with not very how, and everybody pissed off about this attack. And the teacher did two news items in class with us. And so the first was an item, a news report from a Ukrainian news site about the Lavra attack. And then the second one was Brovdy's interview, in which, the headline was, we are cutting off Crimea, and shooting rail tracks is partridge hunting for me. I believe I'm remembering the gist of this, and we went through that interview. And we applauded that lesson because we said that's the stuff we want to hear about and that's the vocabulary we want. But that teacher, it's a guy. This is the first Ukrainian I've talked. I asked him the question: did he that I've been asking Ukrainians as I'm here? Did they see any sort of however slight, it might be turning in the war? And he said he does. He's the first one I've heard willing to say, yes, he thinks so. And the fact that that he selected Magyar's interview with his explanation of his strategy for cutting off Crimea and then other lines of supply and communications uh, seems to me to show like he's looking at strategic stuff, and he's willing to say so. So I thought, because we've all been talking about how we're not that we're all very excited that the pace is stepping up. Adam, I have nothing against accelerating. I cite it because you're the first guy to say it at the time that I was really feeling it too. And yeah, I think he is seeing that acceleration in these operational and strategic hits. So anyway, that was very interesting in class yesterday. My
Right, and
yesterday.
I agree with with respect to what Alan said before we go back to Alan. Here's how I think. I don't know, but I'm going to tell you exactly how it works inside the Kremlin. Um, here he gets potted news summaries from his command that obviously paint things in a good light. So Putin, I think, is still calling the shots, but he's calling the shots based on very limited information that they're allowing to get to him, and information that is well delayed that is allowed to get to him, but also in this spirit of being a KGB agent, of floating some horror out there. And suggesting that they attack the Lavra, then some things go bad for him. The middle O's who plan the attacks, have to condense information, and eventually it's going to get to Putin. And what about St. Petersburg Economic Forum? And now they've hit a strategic reserve. Maybe it's stuff that sneaks through, and he can't avoid hearing about. That he says, well, attack Kyiv, because he himself has said that if this or that happens, we'll directly target Kyiv. And so things are building up bad enough in Russia that he's pulled the trigger and said, release some new horror. He's not planning them directly; they're being laid out for him, much like other it would be to commanders on the other side. But he's doing it. He is calling the shots from this war on week old information. We know from the reports of people who've now escaped Russia that said they didn't tell him about the Moskva sinking for 4 days. I mean, you're not going to hide that forever. We were talking about it here ad nauseum before Putin even got the word on it, right? So sometimes the horror that gets released that you're trying to tie it to, like when they tried to say that dormitory in Starobilsk was, well, was the result. The attack on Kiev that hit the Chernobyl museum, the last big attack, was in retribution for that. But I'm not interested in getting into this discussion about what's retribution for what. Ukraine, Magyar, and the boys, they just need to say there's a war on, and we're going to continue to strike strategic targets anywhere we see fit in Russia, to cut off their capability to raise money to wage war, or cut off their capability to directly wage the war. And that's what we see, as I say. And the other things you can see that clearly they weren't going to cancel the SPIEF, right? But they have canceled the annual St. Petersburg Russia Navy Day parade. The Navy Day parade that we last saw Putin on the Boyki. The ship that got destroyed in a dry dock uh, at Kronstadt. That was the vessel that Putin used to ride around on during Navy Day. Well, they're not having Navy Day now. So say goodbye to that 10-year tradition, because it's no longer safe to do showy things inside Russia. This demonstrates their understanding, whether Putin wants to admit it or not, that they are not strategically safe anywhere in that country. And that has got to eat them up mentally, I reckon. Alan?
Anne Applebaum has said recently, and that we know nothing of the successor to Putin. Russia strikes me more of a black box today than ever before. Go back to the 1950s after Stalin's death. Uh, there was at least a Politburo, and this is what Anne Applebaum points out, that could at least manage the succession. If you go back to Tsar's times, there was an heir to the throne. And so, this is a part and parcel of how Putin runs Russia today. If there is no successor that can be identified, uh, and if Putin dies or is killed or falls out a window, has some tea, what have you, if there's a coup, uh, you are looking at chaos. And chaos in Russia means a more chaotic war against Ukraine. That's point number one. I just think that Putin's grip on power in Russia grows weaker and weaker and weaker by the day. I had a second thought. I, of course, was listening to Will, and when you listen to the Willibuster, your whole thought sequence gets busted. But if you talk a little bit, Will and Adam, I am certain I will recall it, because I wasn't only interested in Putin, I'm primarily interested in Ukraine. And this was my succeeding thought. Who here?
Okay, so
Wait,
if
Will. You're gonna. I'm gonna have to check into the old person's home tomorrow if you keep interrupting my thought sequence, and I don't want to do that because I'm not that old yet. Who here is worried about Kostyantynivka, yeah, and what is unfolding there, at what speed, and if Russia succeeds in occupying Kostyantynivka, does this completely undermine the narrative that Ukraine has succeeded in convincing just about the whole world of, that they are winning? We all know they're winning. They're winning for reasons completely outside Kostyantynivka, but a defeat there, Russian occupation of this fortress city in the east, would be devastating. And Will, Adam, help me put these two thoughts together.
So I don't think the speed at which Kostiantynivka is being infiltrated. I don't think they're going to take it this summer, Alan. I believe that the destruction of their logistics capabilities will hamper both the now, and they have reduced. You notice their pressure, their press out of Huliapoli to the west, and the press into Kostiantynivka are really the only two major axes that are showing heavy activity, and that is due to reduction in forces essentially over the last since December because they're not making up manpower as fast as they're losing it. I think the logistics destruction from May through now, and that will continue because Russia really doesn't have an answer for it yet. I think is going to seriously slow their attempts to continue infiltrating and taking any serious portion or all of Kostiantynivka, which would be a massive PR win for Russia, but not a tactical or strategic win. It's down in a bowl. Ukraine still has the high ground to the north east. So the military people would say Kostiantynivka is not going to be militarily significant for Russia in this summer, but it would be a massive PR win. I just don't think they're going to have the oomph and the supply to be able to do it this summer. And if you've got your pen out, Alan, and you want to know what's going to happen in Russia, I want you to jot down three names who I suspect may, in fact, end up being the next leader of Russia, depending on whether or not the conditions under which regime change takes place favors the hawks or the folks who want to have peace and move on into the future. My money is on the younger Patrushev. Uh, uh, to be installed as a new young leader of Russia who can take them a rebuild out of the ashes for the folks who, strangely enough, he's the son of a serious hawk, but I suspect he might be installed to try to be the new moderate looking voice of them, or Kirienko, the PM, or Belousov. But it really this will depend on who wins the argument between finishing the war or ramping up the war between the Hawks and the moderates who want out, who see the end. And we'll see that play out, I suspect, during the run up to the Duma elections in September, because it isn't important who runs in the Duma elections. It is important who builds the list of candidates for that Duma. And if that Duma gets filled up with hawks, then I think it is more likely that somebody like Belousov is going to be rise from inside his non-notoriety of the military Ministry of Defense to a position where he is running the show. But that's my current line. If I was a betting man, and I am, would be Patrushev, not Nikolai, his son. I think his son's name's Igor, Ivan, um, uh, because everybody else is way too old. Everybody else is in their mid 70s, late 70s, or 80s. Belousov is 67. Kirienko is 64, and Patrushev, the younger Patrushev, is only in his 40s. So those would be my bets. But we'll have to see how it plays out. And I'll definitely be watching, um, Ann Applebaum um, and others who are good Kremlin watchers will give us some more insight on this as we move toward
And
then. But first,
Will,
we need to end the war.
just imagine that Russia becomes a nation with a young or younger leader. And this is something that the United States can't achieve in its electoral politics. It honestly, it would actually make a difference. But you, I think, are exactly right.
Make a difference how?
Well, in age, Adam. I mean, look, Even in Russia, there are young people you need to appeal to. I know that Russia faces a huge demographic cliff that we hope it will fall off. But even in Russia, uh, a younger leader makes a difference. Do I want
What do
an
you think he's
80?
going to be a good guy or do anything good if he's
No,
Petrushev's son? Oh, okay.
no,
Just wanted,
I
let's get
don't.
that straight.
No, I have. There is no one in Russia who will lead Russia out of this dark valley it's descended into. No one. The last person who might have been able to do that was Boris Nemtsov. He was assassinated. I mean, none of these pretend opponents of Putin are able to do it. And, whoever Will has talked about here, they're not able to do it either. But again, uh, all Russia watchers, unless you have inside information, unless you're Jason J. Smart, unless you're Ann Applebaum, someone from the CIA or wherever, simply recognize Russia is a black box, blacker than it has ever been. There is simply no identified successor to Putin. It means that there is chaos in Russia's future. If there's chaos in Russia's future, there's probably chaos in Europe's future, probably chaos in Ukraine's future as well. Uh, but what one would hope, of course, is the breakup of the Russian nation. Uh, just back to Kostyantynivka for one moment, Will. There are reports between 100 and 250 Russian soldiers infiltrating the city of Kostyantynivka, about the same number that Ukraine swept out of Kupiansk just a few weeks ago, just about the same number who initially infiltrated Pokrovsk. Lots of analysts are saying Kostyantynivka is done for and will be occupied by Russia within 3 or 4 weeks. Uh, it looks as concerning to me as Pokrovsk did, but there was always um, Chuck Farr saying Russia's not going to occupy Pokrovsk anytime soon. He's now saying Russia's not going to occupy Kostyantynivka anytime soon. So I'm saying in July and August and September, we will still be talking about Russia's attempt to infiltrate and occupy Kostyantynivka. And I asked Chuck today, what about that little 4-letter word? Will, you pointed out, Kostyantynivka is in a bowl. That little 4-letter word, trap. TRAP. We've seen Ukraine spring it before.
Yeah, we certainly have in Lyshansk, particularly as Russia was very confident about their move there. Um, yeah. But what Adam's worried about, I would probably be worried about. If the Russia is headed for chaos unless the Siloviki line up their plans early and have and quell any opposition in the top ranks. If the argument between the hawks and the pragmatists gets resolved along the lines of something like this, let's install a baby hawk, Dmitry Patrushev, the son of Nikolai, into the top position to quell the concerns of the hawks that we're still going to be an imperialist nation. But he's soft. He's 47. He looks like nice. He can talk, he can talk pleasant to the West. We'll present him as the new face, the young face. All the bullshit that will lead into people like Trump going, "Oh, I think he looks like a good guy. He looks like somebody I can deal with." This is what is the problem. What I think they will do, because as you said, there are no anti-imperialists that are still alive in Russia. There is no political leader that said we're going to choose a different way rather than trying to subjugating our neighbors as a means of advancing our society. No politician is doing that. So it's only a matter of between the pragmatists that want to save whatever they can inside Russia because they see the writing on the wall for collapse, because they actually read the news from all over the world, and the hawks who say, we just need to ramp up. We haven't fully committed here. We need a full mobilization. We need a full nationalization of all industry necessary to win the war, go to full totalitarian control, and we'll crush this Ukraine and probably get started on Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania very quickly. That we're not succeeding simply because we're not trying enough. There are folks in Russia that believe that, and you saw that presented in the St. Petersburg Economic Forum. The hawks who presented there presented a future that was glory or death. That was it. There was no middle ground. It was Russia becomes a chattel, a vassal state of China. Russia gets destroyed totally, or Russia absolutely triumphs and we take everything over to Spain. I mean, that was it. There was no middle ground at all, because there's going to be no Maidan in Russia. They're either going to get a hawk presented as a pragmatist, or an actual pragmatist, or chaos and destruction. And I hope we get chaos and destruction myself, Adam.
Yeah, and I think it's not their choice. It's the choice of the unmanned systems forces and all the other institutions that Ukraine has developed. So even if they put up little young boy Patrushev, it doesn't matter. It's because I don't think Ukraine will stop, especially a post-Trump Ukraine. Is just they just won't. I mean, when the war actually stops, there's going to be uh, Mossad on steroids campaign to hunt down every last one of these filthy war criminals who murdered babies in their beds for 5 or 6 years. And but it's not going to stop when they want it to stop. It's going to stop when Ukraine
Right,
decides
but
it's going to stop.
imagine the hand wringing and pearl clutching that's going to go on over here in the West as they pursue
I'm
that.
going to
Right,
drink
they
it up. It's
pursue.
going to be so tasty.
Just, just,
But look,
just let me jump in here
look
one
for.
second, Will and Adam. First to say, young boy Patrushev, that is like a boy band name that probably would be a big hit for the next 20 years. But Will, please talk about mobilization. Putin is between a rock and a hard place. He can't pay enough to employ enough soldiers to go to Ukraine, and he cannot mobilize St. Petersburg, Moscow, or Ekaterinburg, and he has a manpower shortage in Ukraine. What does he do?
Well, I'm really looking forward to the next quarter, this quarter's numbers of recruitment, because the previous quarter to March, of course, there was 71,400 recruits paid signing bonuses, and they lost about 95,000. That pace has continued and, in fact, accelerated in the last week of May, early June, as the quote unquote push from Russia is on to get Konstantinivka. Now the rate is 1,300 a day. You can do the math there on what that's going to be. But you're right. Well, it remains to be seen. The last gasp to me was no longer just signing bonuses. They will. The Russian government will wipe off 140,000 U.S. dollars worth of debt to any Russian who signs a contract right now. And that, that's not a bonus to be paid out over 3 years. That's wiping out all your debt now. That is massively dialing up the recruitment bonus for anybody who's indebted. Oh, and there's a lot more indebted people for larger values in Moscow and Leningrad Oblast. We'll see if that gets them. We'll see if that gets them through the door. But but what I see from the richer classes of Russia who live in Moscow and St. Petersburg or California or other places where they tend to mouth off a lot, Germany, is that they sure talk a lot about how they'd be willing to go serve, but I don't see any of them voting with their feet yet because they're fundamentally cowards and don't believe in the motherland sacrificing anything for the motherland. They like to see the regions I mean, it's like Hunger Games, right? They want to see the regional populations be expended. They're happy with all that, but I don't think recruitment is going to be great because here's my signal for that. 140,000 US dollars worth of debt write-off immediately is quite an enticement, but you'll remember that the reduction in motivation for joining has coincided with bonuses in Moscow and Leningrad regions of up to 6 million rubles, half of which gets paid up front. That hasn't done it for him, Alan. So I don't suspect that buying more people from Moscow and St. Petersburg is going to work. And you now see what the true face of Russian colonialism is coming out, which is they need to ramp up or forcibly conscript people in and trick them in Central Africa. They believe that all the people in Central Africa should be brought in, no matter whether it's conscription or oppressing, tricking, or paying to get all the Africans in to fight this war because St. Petersburg people aren't willing to go do it. So I don't. um, I don't think it's going to be successful. We'll see. But if he doesn't have the warm bodies and he doesn't have the supply, it's quite easy for me to say I'm with Chuck that I don't think that their efforts in Konstantinivka are going to bear fruit. The rate of advance there hasn't been any greater than anywhere else prior to the lack of supply, and the rate of advance now isn't accelerating. It's just it's the creeping cancer. When they're willing to send people into the next street, the other thing that's hurting Russia very badly, especially over to the west of there near Zaporizhia, is this buying places on credit. Alan is causing um, commanders to send lots of people, whole units, in to get slaughtered because they're areas with that they are supposed to hold. They know they don't hold. They've told their higher command that they hold them, and the higher command has said, well, then move into that area because you hold it. So they're forced to throw people into places where they don't hold, and then they get absolutely butchered, which is where these numbers are coming from. 1,300 a day, folks. That's the average right now. I don't think mobilization is going to save. Well, a full actual mobilization of Russia might get them the numbers they need, but look at the damage that's likely to cause. So the three indicators I want to see this week that are very important indicators of where this war is going is what are the conversations that take place at the G7? What's the who and what are they trying to set up Ukraine to having to accept today? What sort of conditions are they trying to force Ukraine to accept, which they will very probably rebuff, given their current position? And inside Russia, does Nabalina show up for the Reserve Bank meeting where she normally does the rate announcement and do a Q&A? If she either doesn't show up or they just announce the number and she's not allowed to do the Q&A, then you can see that the rise of the Hawks is gaining momentum, and they will probably call a mobilization. And if they call a mobilization, they'd better have done all their homework at all the borders, which I'm relatively certain they have from the borders that I've checked. That they don't allow the escape 300,000 men this time of fighting age because the numbers heading for the exits this time are likely to be greater than last time, because nobody in Russia doesn't know the truth if they have wanted to find out at all. Everybody's got a VPN that wants to know what's going on, and they get the same information we do. In fact, the information campaign in Russia, by trying to shut off the internet, is actually working worse for them, because people are forced to use Max or a VPN. They're choosing a VPN, and they're getting a lot more news than they used to get from outside Russia. So, kind of stepped on his dick there, Adam.
I think they did. Um, like, so it's the second tweet in the nest. And here's what Magyar said. The Ukrainian response is not a flash of anger, but a conveyor belt of retribution already running. And so they might try and do all of these things, but if Irkutsk is starving by mid-November, how much is it going to do? What, let's not look at this as some sort of linear, traditional story. Look at it like it's a really weird, twisted Coen Brothers movie. Like, put it over Fargo. Someone's gonna fall and shoot themselves in the chin, and that's gonna be one of the effects of how this goes. So I'm not gonna say I'm very, very, very confident that this ends in chaos and collapse, because really, I think institutionally, Ukraine has realized that the only way for them to be safe is to have no version of the world's largest succubus Borg absorbing other people's empire as their neighbor. It'd be way easier to deal with 38 little Hungaries than it would be to deal with that. So, as to Huila's successor, I would say I wish him many, many successors, all at the same time. And I would also ask on the Konstantinivka front, I think the most pertinent data point would be, how full are those boys' jerry cans trying to get into that town?
Yeah, that's right. I don't think the supply shortage has hit yet fully. I'm waiting for about July 1st for the seriousness of supply shortages to happen. Because what we see in the civilian side is, with 50% of the refining capacity offline, all these mid-range strikes, all the depots that have been knocked out, what we're and are continuing through July is, we've already seen the Hunger Games start between the civilian population and the military for fuel. Uh, if the farmers are being cut off and the commercial folks then have to compete for fuel with the military, uh, they're going to get starved. We're going to the problems will come home to roost for even the frontline forces related to military supply of fuel in particular. But think of everything that relies on fuel: delivery of food, water, operation of all your generators. Remember, Andre, and most of the visitors from the front line here have told us how important generators are at the front, little personal generators. Well, that stuff doesn't run on drains. It runs on two-stroke. And if you're, as you say, if you don't have a 20-liter jerry can there near you, your diesel generator your gasoline or diesel generator isn't going to run very long. And they run them summer and winter. It isn't just wintertime that they have to run generators. They got to run them for all their comms, all their internet,
Drone
all
charging
for
batteries.
exactly.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
going to have trouble. I know it won't operate like this on our Twitter screens, but I just want to see a day when the gas just all starts running out and we get a day of videos of just like drones just falling down all of a sudden. Like, what's that movie, that horror movie from many years ago, The Happening? All of a sudden it's just like
Mm.
flum, 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 flum. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, the thing about logistics, just like anything all across the zero line, yeah, you never know where and when logistical problems are going to strike. So, right now, we would actually like to see Russian logistics around Kostyantynivka be completely cut off, but that's not right now where it's happening. Rather, it's happening far, far to the west on the banks of the Dnieper River. It's probably happening up around Kamyansky, but it's not happening right now in Kostyantynivka.
Coming soon to a neighborhood near you, though, Alan, because the lack of supply in the further west will draw some from the center that you're talking about there. And I'll note that the expansion of strikes is getting at and continuing on the three rail junctions where they load trucks in and around Donetsk there, and that highway from Mariupol up to Donetsk and the highway from Mariupol over to Taganrog are continuous focus in these things. There's a lot to shut down, but I think the shutdown is first being seen in the far west, but it's coming soon to the center near Donetsk, very soon.
I,
I sure hope so.
I think it's if it is their main push in their mythical summer offensive that they're trying out, then they're going to be trying to feed that. So it's going to be the institutionalized winner of the Hunger Games if that's where their big push is too. So we can't forget that.
But they're going to be forced to choose. Do they want to keep pressing toward Orkiv, or are they going to be down to one axis? Because and if they move down to one axis, that also helps Ukraine because remember they're defending from inside the circle, not outside the circle, and reducing to one axis of attack is also beneficial for Ukraine to be able to focus defense and cut off that one location. So I don't see. Yeah, I don't see. I just don't see where the justification for Kostiantynivka is going to fall soon. Maybe by this autumn, but if they're able to keep up the infiltration the way they are, because Ukraine's not interested in fighting that way for the bottom of a soup bowl. If unless they're successful in reestablishing uh, control in the mid range of their area, I just don't see anything from Mariupol West turning into a success for Russia anytime soon. I guess the signal of that will be them potentially switching to a different axis toward Liman again or Kupiansk, which they have to retake a whole bunch of territory that they've lied about having already. I just don't see it as being good news. More bad news for Russia is that they have developed a capability to block a single Starlink satellite at a time. So they have developed a means by which they can bombard a Starlink satellite with signals so that it can't function. But that only blacks out like a little 20 kilometer radius of area because remember, there are 10,000 Starlink satellites in very low Earth orbit. So blinding a Starlink satellite in a small area is an approach that you can do if you've got a couple $1 million worth of equipment pointed at it. But in order to point that couple $1 million of equipment at it, you have to have an array of antennas spread out in a set of shipping containers. And now, when Ukraine identifies those, if they're having Starlink problem in any area, they quickly scan the area for one of these new systems that Russia has developed, the Volna Kupol Garant electronic warfare system, and they smoked that. So they've got the second of those now. The 422nd Unmanned Systems Battalion, the Luftwaffe, have
Oh, I bet you
demonstrated
that
the
sticks in
destruction
their
of one of
craws.
those.
Well,
Oh yeah, they'd hate that. That would be right up there with the Edelweiss group.
yes, yeah. That might be some of that vaunted special equipment. Um, and I wonder how it shows up on the. Have you guys checked out this SBS dash group period on.
Every week.
I've recently discovered it, and I just want to share that while we've been talking, I'm just going to hit refresh on this. So it was at 32 at just before the top of the hour, so about an hour ago, and it's at 44 enemy personnel eliminated already by the unmanned systems forces today. And so, yeah, if you're feeling bad about the Lavra, you can just sit there with that on one of your screens and just check back periodically. Oh, it went up 20 this hour. That's amazing.
Yeah, go Nemesis. I love the. I like the 412th Nemesis. I love the space alien.
Yeah, I love all of it.
So I always follow. Myself Nemesis because I like their logo, and I follow Achilles because that's the folks from Frontline Kit, which I'll mention this that we help try to raise money for. Frontline Kit makes drones specifically for Achilles, and so I often go online to see whether or not the drones we're helping Frontline Kit build are reaping rewards, and they certainly are. But folks, I'll remind you, we're going to close up in about 10 minutes, but I'll remind you that we are here to dispel Russian disinformation and provide you the news of what's going on in the war, analysis from what we've been reading on what might happen or could happen, and all of that, so that you can go out and be an advocate, so that you're well informed when people ask you about what's going on in Ukraine. But additionally, if you do have a spare dollar to spend, we'd really appreciate supporting any of the fundraisers that we have in the nest, whether it's the Bazillion Sisters or either of the medics, Operation Stroopwafel to get all the humanitarian stuff. But my dollars normally go to my folks who teach shotgun training at Gunbro, or at Frontline Kit, where they're making drones, or of course the trigger pullers that War Doggo supports through the proactive campaign. I do appreciate humanitarian aid, and a lot of my money earlier in the war did go to humanitarian aid, but now my focus when I have money to donate is on folks that are Frank, not to put too fine a point on it, but killing lots of orcs, because no humanitarian aid is going to be necessary, and no amount of humanitarian aid is going to be beneficial if we don't get this war over, and that means killing lots and lots and lots of orcs. Adam.
Apologies, screens away. Yeah, no, I've passed that. I think we all passed that threshold quite a while ago, quite a few atrocities ago, quite a few ancient churches ago. And yeah, I can't agree more. Go ahead, Terry.
While we're talking about killing the orcs, I had a listen to Sean Pinner interviewing Dimko. I'm sure we all know Dimko from Ziggerspaw. And it was a really good interview. But there was one stage at which Sean was shocked by something that Dimko said quite sort of matter-of-factly. And they no longer talk about killing the orcs, they talk about deleting them. And that just made Sean sort of step back a moment and say, "What is that? Do you do that as a joke, sort of black humor, or why do
No,
you?"
it's the gamification, right?
Yeah, and it ties in with this conveyor belt of retribution. It's exactly what Dimko was saying as well, because he obviously follows Magyar himself, and he's now. Dimko is now sort of sitting way behind the front line and helping organise all sorts of other bits and pieces, all to do with the drones, because he's been so knowledgeable about it all. But it's definitely an interview that I'd recommend. It's on YouTube, and just look up Sean Pinner and you'll come across
Yeah,
it.
I agree.
But
I agree. And Russian viewers or folks that are, Greta Thunberg, whoever listen in, people who fancy themselves humanitarians. Russia's tried to play into this, but Magyar and the folks have doubled down on it, which is, they've complained about the gamification of this war. Well, you can't maximize something unless you measure it. So the USF setting up this scoreboard and providing people bonuses for their effectiveness in using the limited tools they had at the time when this all started to maximize the outcome. And maximizing the outcome is eliminating Russian vehicles and eliminating Russian soldiers and that are inside Ukraine. This is and so that was considered, oh, how crass, how cruel that is to have to it. At what point do we begin feeling sympathy for killing genociders? None, zero. So they've expanded on this by going, yeah, we have gamified it. We now have it's like a video game every day. Our ammunition shows up here, and we're going to use that to delete a lot of orcs today. And deleting is exactly what it is. This goes along with Russia's aversion to talking about cargo when they were talking cargo 200 or cargo 300, right? Dead or wounded. Russia wants to avoid saying the words dead and wounded when they know it deals with their soldiers. But I fully endorse talking about deleting Russians inside Ukraine because they're genociders, all of them, and they richly deserve being deleted. And any of those that don't actively show that they're following the rules of armed conflict and surrendering to the drones that they think are going to kill them, sorry, that no sympathy whatever, Adam.
Preaching to the Banderite choir. But yeah, I think it's, I guess one could call it dehumanizing, but they are occupiers. And this is, the greatest trick that the devil ever pulled is convincing the world that he didn't exist. And real evil is out there, and you can hold these, you can feel bad for that moron walking in a field because he did not have the dignity or agency to do anything about it, or spend his life in a better way of trying to fight his oppressor as opposed to trying to kill and maim Ukrainians. But he made his choice, and he needs to be deleted. And if that helps the boys behind the controllers to feel better about it, bless you. Do whatever is needed, because this is work that needs doing. And it's not good work. It's not work. This is a burden to the people doing the deleting. And it is a duty that they are taking for their own homes and their own families, but for all of us. And they will carry those, however, in their mind and their psyche forever. And so any help they get from that, because in the end, you can feel bad for these guys at the same time as holding them responsible for their choices and the choices of the nation that they're in. Go ahead, Zdenka.
Hi, guys. Hi, Adam. Adam, can you tell me how to read that scoreboard? Is the first entry the SBS, which I guess is Special Bezpilotny Systemi, is that the total for all the other groups?
Yeah, I think it's the grand
The first
total.
page is the first page, the summed up total, and then you can look at the individual pages for each group. If you click on the overall monthly summary over in the overhead, it'll give you this month's summary, working total, and then you can look at the totals for the previous month by clicking to the right of that.
Okay, I'm looking at it on my phone, and it's actually not on separate pages. It's in a list, but the top one, which is the CBS, that's the total.
Yeah, that's the total for the group for the months currently.
Okay.
And the clock's ticking.
Just quickly, it's halftime. New Zealand is 1, Iran is 1 in the World Cup. Back to you.
Yep, just about to mention that before we close out. Go New Zealand. And Iran did manage to get out the draw with Uruguay, so that's unfortunate.
Sorry?
Saudi Arabia managed to try Uruguay.
Yes, that's unfortunate. It's a hard group. Okay, thanks. Oh, but coming soon is Croatia v England. I think that'll be interesting.
It will. Yeah, this New Zealand game particularly interesting, and then yeah, that English game will be good to watch. If you're in America, do try to pick up on some of this World Cup. It's very interesting, and you're very lucky to have it in your hemisphere. So you should try to and take some of it in. So last but not least, speaking of deleting orcs, I had to put this one up because at Bolshe Ugoni in Kursk, it isn't just in the occupied territories, folks. The 8th Air Assault Corps found a UAS school in Kursk and managed to strike it 4 times. And took out a lot of drone operators from Russia's side. So I found that particularly delicious, and it's up there in the nest too. That's the last item I had to talk about today, Adam. Hey, for the for those who are squeamish, I apologize for focusing on deletion of orcs so much today, and truck drivers and everything. But that's just who I am. No apologies.
I think we're all adults and we can realize that you can feel bad for a particular individual in their things, but also that everyone is responsible for their choices. Okay, Terry, we've got to close her down, so make it quick.
Yeah, very quick. I've just put that link to Sean interviewing Dimko. I've put a link in the purple pill for you.
Can I just quickly add?
Good on you.
Can I quickly add? I thought that was an astounding interview. So it's on Substack also. So Sean Pinner and Dimko. It's awesome. I highly recommend it as well.
Well, okay, we cannot go.
Right, my button wasn't working.
Oh, yeah. Well, we will, I'll just say Slava Ukraini.
Heroim Slava.
From Slava.
Yeah, Heroim Slava. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Sorry we can't go overtime today. I've got an appointment, and yeah, it's been great to sit with you, Adam. And Slava Natsi.
Smet Voraham.
Do peromohi. That's all, folks. Mockers will be up later on today with, I think she's with Firefella today. So tune in about.
No, it's Firefellow with somebody else.
That's
Yeah,
right.
with Magnus.
Yeah, so actually, I am going to make sure I tune in later on today because Magnus is on with Firefellow. That'll be good. I think that's the first time we got a noob sitting in the co-host chair today. That's great. So that's in 5 hours, I think. Anywho, we'll figure it out. Four. Four when they're usually on. Unfortunately, it looks like he's offside. Iran didn't score. So yeah, Adam, thanks very much, and see you all next time.
Pobachimus.
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 Join us and Volya Radio.